That's mad. That's absolutely balmy. If I'm the head teacher of a school, I am not a structural engineer. It's like saying that. It's like saying that Marcus Rashford's in charge of making the tea at half time at Old Trafford. It's not. It's just mad. The weekend has literally just been more updates from the school, just getting all the information in place. I've got 3 kids at the same school, and now it's 3 kids across 3 separate schools. And what they're doing is I've got 1 kid in the main school where they've got a couple of usable classrooms, and then the other 2 are going separately in the same town, but they're sort of laying on buses and just generally making it as straightforward and smooth as possible for parents to get their kids to and from school. So, as I was saying the other day, the school have been absolutely amazing, considering, in my opinion, they're working with one hand tied behind their back when it comes to the DfE's lack of action and just lack of information as well. I mean, our school is slightly different to all the ones you see in the news. It's been going on since, so we've already had 1 half term of disruption moving to an entirely new site. And again, the DfE said, "Oh, you'll have your temporary classrooms in place by the beginning of term," and of course that hasn't happened. And now it's going to be mid-November apparently, and I use that with a Saxo carton full of salt. But it's not just one school they've got to deal with now; it's hundreds. So again, I've got absolutely no confidence in the government's handling of this matter whatsoever.
What's the long-term plan? I mean, I realise you're looking at the short and the mid, really. You're talking short-term in terms of, what happens with your kids, medium-term, November. But long-term, I mean, what is the eventual that this stuff's going to be like, knocked out and replaced?
Well, again, we don't know about how the actual building itself is going to be sorted out. I mean, that's sort of a long-term thing. But I mean, from what we've been told, the temporary structures aren't like when I was at school, when you sort of close the door and a window flew open. They're actual proper modular, buildings basically. So the modular buildings they're going to be putting in 2 stages, and they could last for 3 years, 5 years, however long it takes, which is great because obviously they're not, there are going to be classrooms in place for the kids. Long term, I would assume the school will be knocked down to an extent, but again, we just don't know what the long term plan is going to be. But again, as long as the kids can get into some kind of classroom all on the same site, surely that has to be the main goal, and that's where we're getting the lack of information from the DfE.
Yeah. So you're talking about the DfE, Education Secretary Gillian Keegan. You just heard her in that clip saying it's the schools and the local authorities really that should have been on top of what was going on with this material.
That's mad. That's absolutely balmy. If I'm the head teacher of a school, I am not a structural engineer. It's like saying that. It's like saying that Marcus Rashford's in charge of making the tea at half time at Old Trafford. It's not. It's just mad. And again, it's just another example of buck passing. This government has got very, very good at making the public turn on people who shouldn't be turned upon. This goes right back to the over the pandemic, for instance. People were attacking schools and not maybe attacking the government for their lack of planning in terms of when the schools should shut. Even during the strikes recently as well. Everyone's been like, "Oh, teachers bad," but not actually stopping to think why they're doing it. So again, this government is generally very good at making people go after the wrong people, if that makes sense.
Okay. Simon, thank you for talking to us. Simon Harris, whose 3 children are directly affected, but they had some notice of these issues.